Whether you just filed your return, late again, or you always file on time, or you've never filed and you're living under a rock, there's something coming and you need to know about it. See, every year on tax day, certain of our fellow Americans talk about how great other countries have it wherein their government prepares their tax returns for them. And now, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, this talk is taking steps towards action. Real CPA here, have some news to share with you. Hello to all my financial people and business people and side hustlers out there, and welcome to Just the Tax. This is my little channel about spreading the good word of financial literacy, so it's more than just the tax. Like I was saying, there's been a lot of talk about how great it would be if the government just prepared our tax returns for us. In this video, we're going to talk about the arguments for and against it and what you can do to prepare yourself. Let's get into it. Here are the arguments in favor of the motion. Number 1, software providers and national chains are incentivized to keep this complexity. Number 2, such companies mislead people into paying for a service that they could otherwise get for free. Number 3, there's an assumption that less income is less complexity, which leads to number 4, the IRS already has all of the taxpayers' information already, and therefore they should just file the return. This has been widely reported and discussed on NPR and other news outlets. It's almost like an annual ritual. It's been hinted at by folks like Tim Harford in his book, The Undercover Economist. And more recently, it's been covered by one of my favorite YouTubers, Cody on his showdy at Some News. Respectfully, sir, I disagree, and I will lay out some thoughts as to why you, gentle viewer, should as well. To the charge that accountants and attorneys are incentivized to want the system to be more complicated and not simplified. Well, that's the impression you get if you just skim the surface. But you have to understand the sword of Damocles hanging over our heads as professionals. The IRS has effectively deputized us. And it's all stick, no carrot. We don't get a badge and gun and handcuffs. We could lose our livelihoods and our liberty if we make a mistake when we prepare our clients' returns. And yet, the success of all these laws depends on tax preparers taking on all this complexity. And speaking of complexity, I don't think there's a true understanding of just how complicated the tax law actually is, even and especially among the legislators that make this stuff. Ever have to explain to someone that they're, of course, the head of household, but they don't qualify as head of household? Have you ever had to explain to a real estate agent that they may not qualify as a real estate professional under the code? Ever have to explain to someone that just because someone on YouTube said that you can depreciate a brand new Tesla doesn't mean they're right, and that it may not work for you either? I don't know who in their right mind would want the system to be this complicated. Perhaps a sadistic masochist, someone that hates themselves. But let's get at these 4 arguments. Argument number 1, software providers and large change preparers are incentivized to want that complexity. Well, duh, of course they are, but they're the symptom of the problem, not the cause of it. Going after the software providers and large chain preparers won't solve the problem. Argument number 2, the software providers and large chain preparers mislead people into paying for something that they could otherwise get for free through the IRS free file system. Again, duh, what do you think would happen when you put foxes in charge of guarding the hen house? This argument's a red herring. Argument number 3, taxpayers of lesser means have less complicated tax returns. Wow, look folks, I've been a CPA since 1998, and there is no direct relationship between one's income and the complexity of one's tax returns. I've seen wealthy folks with simple returns, I've seen poor folks with complicated returns. And also, we gotta talk about the arrogance in such an assumption, like just because someone's poor, they therefore need protection and can't think for themselves. It's an insult to their intelligence. Seriously, there's plenty of dumb people with money and there's plenty of intelligent people without money. Argument number 4. The IRS has all the information they need already, so they should just go ahead and prepare your return. You know, like how they do it in other countries. In other countries, the government sends you a form, and if you agree, you sign off and pay what you owe. Done and done in 5 minutes. Oh boy. Oh boy. Where do we start with that? We're going to dismantle this bit of nonsense right now. But first, if you like what you're hearing and you want to hear more, please give me a like, share, and subscribe. Okay, now let's get to the other side of the argument. Rebuttal number 1. The third-party reporting system, you know, all these W-2s and 1099s and 1098s and things, it's a flawed system. There's mistakes on those forms. Rebuttal number 2. The IRS does not, in fact, have all the information they need to prepare a taxpayer's return. Newsflash, because we social engineer through our tax code, these returns ask for more than just the kind of information that will be sent on a W-2, a 1099, or a 1098. And note, I'm not saying whether it's good or bad that we social engineer through the tax code, I'm just saying we need to acknowledge that we do it. Rebuttal number 3. The average taxpayer's understanding of what's really being asked of them and the fear and superstition around the IRS would lead people to admit to an assessment of tax that may not be correct. Again, I need to specify, a lack of knowledge is not the same as a lack of intelligence, but this is something we have to deal with. Rebuttal number 4, the IRS is tax collector? Woof! Let's get back to Tim Harford and his blessings of the dismal science. Economics is the study of incentives. Tax collector as tax preparer? Are you kidding me? That's the ultimate fox guarding a scared and superstitious henhouse. Seriously, I represented people that have had a return prepared for them by the IRS. And let's just put it this way, we're all entitled to a standard deduction, but we don't actually have to claim it. So guess what happens when the IRS prepares a return for you? No, seriously, just guess. Look, the IRS represents the government, as they should. Just as you should like, share, and subscribe right now because I could really use your support. Tax season is rough. Okay, let's pick this apart, like crows picking at roadkill. As stated previously, the third-party reporting system doesn't capture all the information needed to prepare a tax return. So no, the IRS doesn't have all the information they need to prepare your return, nor should they. Why do we need to tell the government all this stuff about our lives? I'd like a little privacy, said the guy who's making a YouTube video. Okay, so we humans are allowed to be contradictory on certain things. It's okay. It's going to be okay. But there's more. There's an assumption, and it's a faulty one, that just because something is reported on, say, a 1099, that it's prepared correctly or processed by the IRS correctly. So, true story, once had a client who had a 1099 NEC for $6,500 that the IRS processed as $650,000 and started collections actions accordingly. Folks, I'll never forget the calls I had with those well-meaning agents. You know, the people that should be preparing our tax returns, just have the issuer prepare a corrected 1099. Me, to them, the 1099 was issued correctly. There's nothing to correct. You, not you personally, Miss Agent, your colleague over there at the IRS added a couple extra zeros that weren't actually there. But Jonathan, you'd say, or well, they'd say, you're just cherry picking. This is an outlier. That only happened one time to one person. Yeah, right. Folks, let's do some math for a second. High level, don't worry, CPA stands for can't pass arithmetic. My wife's an engineer, she's the math magician in the family. Look, the IRS processes over 150 million tax returns each year. If they make a mistake on 0.1%, that's 150,000 taxpayers getting improper collections actions. That's a lot of people suffering unnecessarily. None of us, whatever side of the aisle you're on, or even if you're in government, should be okay with a system that can produce such unfair results. Okay, big words alert. I trust that my fellow Americans are not blocks and stones and less than senseless things. And yes, that's an accountant quoting Shakespeare. In terms of whether or not the IRS should be both tax preparer and tax collector, we need a deontological approach, not a utilitarian approach. So utilitarian, think Star Trek 4, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. And deontological, an action is correct because it's the right thing to do. And yes, I'm paraphrasing here. In other words, harming one taxpayer harms all taxpayers. Out of all my rebuttals, it's only the third one that gets attention in the media. The first two, that the third-party reporting system is flawed and that the IRS doesn't in fact have all the information to prepare a return, they're largely ignored by the people reporting on this because they didn't take time to actually learn about the problem. The third rebuttal, that the average taxpayer doesn't understand the tax law, well, this is both true and offensive. First, yes, if you're watching this video, my guess is that you might have some questions about taxes, and you've come to the right place. I'll be happy to answer those questions. If you like, share, and subscribe, and put those questions below in the comments. But disclaimer, this is for education purposes. I'm not selling you anything. I'm at Real CPA, but I'm not your CPA. Hashtag not tax advice. But getting back to the third rebuttal. It's offensive because it assumes that people can't take care of themselves, and that's just not true. Though sometimes we can all use an assist. No. The real rebuttal, the thing that scares the deduction out of me, sorry, that was a dad joke plus an accounting joke, yeah. No, seriously, the real rebuttal here, the thing that no one is talking about is, I don't want to live in a police state. I like my shining city on a hill to stay shiny and on a hill. And I would hope that you share that. I've got a question for you. What makes an American? It's not the way we look or talk or worship. It's that we all come together on the notion that certain truths are self-evident, right? You know, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and down by our creator, all that good stuff. I've seen the harm that comes when someone gets an improper tax assessment, even when it's self-inflicted. Tell me, where's the justice for someone getting stuck with a tax debt they'll carry for the rest of their lives because they didn't know how to fill out a form? Sounds like an 8th Amendment violation to me, but I'm a CPA, not an attorney. Maybe this video gets enough likes and subscribes and shares. Legal, huge fan by the way, love the suit, sir. Will lend his expert commentary. But back to the point. I know that the tax law is complicated, and I know that the average taxpayer doesn't have the time or inclination to learn it, nor should they. Adam Smith, in his book, The Wealth of Nations, said, economies prosper when people specialize. But To make the argument that taxes are too hard, let the government do it for us, is at once laughable and exasperating. Look, I'll concede, I'll admit that tax law is too complicated. You're right, but we can't let the IRS, the ultimate fox, guard a scared and superstitious henhouse. The main problem with having the government prepare our taxes is it would put too much power over us at the hands of the government. Last time I checked our history books, we had a little tea party up in Boston. Something to do with taxes? How ironic then that our revolution against tyranny would see us tyrannize our own selves. The solution to the overly complicated tax law isn't to have the government prepare these forms for us. It's to simplify the tax law. Duh, but what do I know? Apparently I want things to be complicated. No, no I don't. You see, I'm not just a tax preparer, I'm also a taxpayer. Okay, this was part one, but I don't like to rant and complain without putting forth some suggestions. But this video is getting kind of long, so we'll do that in another video. Alright my fellow financial people, thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and in the comments below, post some requests for topics you'd like me to cover in future videos. In the meantime, may your profits be high, your taxes low, and I'll see you next time back at Just the Tax.